Hello and welcome back to Tax Calc TV, your monthly fix of insight and enlightenment delivered free of charge by the people behind your favourite accounting software. I'm Andy North, the CMO here at Tax Calc, and once again I'm joined by Dean Shepherd, our Head of Customer Engagement. This week it's all about exit. Unless you have supernatural powers of longevity, it's highly likely that at some point you're going to want out of your firm. And when you make the leap, it's probably sensible to either sell for as much as possible, or at least pass on as much of a valuable asset as you can to your chosen beneficiary. The question is how? What steps can you take to make sure that your firm realises the most value on exit, and what pitfalls you need to avoid that might erode all of your hard work? Well, we have a plan. Well, not specifically us, but we are joined by the wonderfully insightful and outstandingly purple Bev Flanagan. Bev is on a mission to stop accountants wasting their hard work and simply letting the value of their firms dwindle. Bev, in case there's anyone watching who's not familiar with your work, could you introduce yourself?
Of course. But first of all, I must say I'm super excited to be here in the Tax Calc studios. How professional is this?
Rightly so.
It's like Sky News, isn't it? But hi everyone, I'm super excited to be here. I'm Bev Flanagan, as Andy's just said. I've actually been an accountant for 30 years. I'm just waiting for you to say I don't look old enough. So yeah, but I've been an accountant for 30 years. I started off in industry a long time ago. My last employed job, I was financial controller for 4 of the companies for the Daily Mail and General Trust Group. We all got made redundant because they created a big shared accounting centre and in Leicester. Nothing wrong with Leicester, but none of us wanted to relocate. And that's when I started my accounting practice, which was Mind Your Assets Accounts. I grew it all by myself, I scaled it, and it became a profitable, highly profitable, cash-rich company. And after 17 years of running it, I sold it in the summer of 2022. Now I'm living my best life, helping accountants and bookkeepers to do the same as me, really.
So thank you very much for coming in. I hear you've got an offer for our viewers today.
I've got a special offer for Tax Calc customers. So we'll give you the link right at the end of this session, although I can just see it on the screen right now. But we'll give you more information at the end. But basically, I'm running a one-day event in Sheffield, where I'm from, in May. And it's going to be super exciting, where you will learn lots more about what we're going to be talking about today.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bev. There are a couple of golden rules that Bev has explained to me already. The first one is that it's never too early to get started with this. If you're looking at 6 months down the line, if you're looking at 20 years down the line, this is really important stuff. So take time to take a look at this. Secondly, the steps that you need to take fall into broadly 3 categories. So we've got to be looking at the clients, we're going to be looking at the process, and we're going to be looking at they've got the process and the staff. They're the important 3 things that you need to be looking at. So we're going to break that down. Not only that, we're going to be asking our Dean to take a little trip down his memory lane about when he was running a firm and when he exited his firm, just to look at where he went right and where he went wrong during his process of exiting from his firm. So before we start, we've got a couple of bits of housekeeping to go through. First of all, yes, I know someone will always ask. I don't know if has anyone asked yet.
Someone has actually asked if we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar, Andy.
Will we be sending out a recording?
We will be sending out a recording, yes. Absolutely.
We will be sending out a recording of this. Secondly, we do rely heavily on the chat. We love hearing your questions and your comments and your feedback. Please do post that. We're going to focus on the chat, which is in the right-hand side at the bottom of your screen. Everyone can see anything that you write in there. So it becomes quite a chaotic but fun place to be. You do have an option of using the questions tab. That only poses the questions to us. So if you're shy, use that. But we may well miss that because we do tend to get focused on that chat that goes on. So we'll be using that very heavily. Wonderful. So let's get started. So Bev, what is all the fuss about exit planning? Why is everyone talking about it?
Well, I don't think it's talked about enough, if I'm being honest, Andy. The thing is, every single accountant and bookkeeper that is running their practice, watching this webinar right now, You will exit your firm at some point in the future. It's inevitable. It's like taxes. It's going to happen. But we don't think about that really. So some of us do. Obviously I did. But some of my clients now, they don't think about it because they're just sort of winging it. You've heard of that phrase before, right? You're winging it. Because
very much so.
You just start your practice and you think this is going to be the best thing ever. I'm working for myself. I can do what I want to do when I want to do it. But then what actually happens is we get stuck into doing the day-to-day things because usually we don't price enough, we don't value ourselves enough. Therefore, like I said, we undercharge. We then can't afford to get team members in to help us. So we get stuck doing the day-to-day things. And the exit, literally, we don't think about that whatsoever because we're just too busy running our practice and dealing with the constant deadlines that our clients face in our industry. So it is very, very important, like I said, because you will be exiting at some point, whether you pass it to your children or family members, whether you sell it like I did, or whether you just get that fed up and you just give all your clients notice and let them go and find another accountant. Please, please, please do not do that last thing though.
What was your experience, Dean? Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I winged it throughout most of my career
Yeah.
and the practice. I have to say, I didn't plan for much of it in advance. I think when I did the final exit from the practice, somebody reached out to me on Accounting Web. I met with them, and I think the whole deal was done and dusted, and me out the door within 6 months. So, yeah, I didn't put much forethought into it, I have to say.
Right, so it was a straight up. So when you started, there wasn't a vision for what the end would look like at all?
No, not at all. I completely infuriated any business coach I worked with because they were constantly trying to get me to visualise what I wanted the practice to look like so that they could help me get there. And they said, we can't really help you get to where you want to be unless you have an idea of where you want to be. And I had no idea of where I wanted to get to.
They love that, don't they?
Yeah, I wasn't very popular, I have to say.
But that's the thing, because you were too busy to plan, because you were doing the day-to-day stuff, I should imagine. And don't think I'm perfect neither. I didn't plan exit right from the beginning, but I would definitely tell everybody that's watching this to start today with that plan in mind. Because it might be in the next 12 months, it might not be until another 50 years' time, but you still have to have that plan in mind of when you want to exit and what that looks like to you.
Fantastic. So we're going to go straight into a poll. We have a question, but also while you're in the chat and while you're on the poll there, let us know if you've got the similar experience, or are you breaking the mold? Do you have a very clear vision of where you want to be and when you want to be there? Be interested to see what your thoughts are. So Dean, what's the first poll question?
Okay, I've just made that live. That should be coming up on your screens. If you don't see it, there is a little polls tab in the bottom right-hand corner next to the chat and questions, so you can access it there. But our first poll of the day is, when do you envisage exiting your practice? So we've got the options of, it's up for sale. Who's buying? Are you buying, Andy?
Not right now.
Okay.
Not right now.
Okay, Andy's not buying.
No.
Within the next 3 years, in the next 3 to 10 years, 10 years plus, or it's my baby, I will never sell.
So this is probably a slightly, it's not a scientific poll, because we're guessing that by the fact that you've come to this event that you'll probably have some kind of inkling that you might want to sell. Although 6 people here, it's my baby, I will never sell, have said so.
So that's interesting though. So when they come to sort of retirement age and they've had enough of working, what are you going to do with your practice then? All those years of blood, sweat and tears, what are you going to do then? I'd like them to answer that if that's fine. If that's all right.
Yeah,
Pop your answers in the chat, or even in the questions option next to the chat, because that's easier for us to pull out and read. So if you've got an answer for Bev there, just pop it in as a question and we'll read that out. In terms of the results that are flowing in, the highest percentage we got there, 40% of respondents say that they are looking to exit in the next 3 to 10 years. We've got around 23% within the next 3, and then smaller amounts for 10 years plus. 13% are actively up for selling their practice. So if we've got any buyers amongst the crowd, then make yourselves known.
We can put you in touch. For those people, if you didn't see the poll, the polls button is at the bottom right-hand side in the middle, if you didn't see that. So I know a couple of people were saying they couldn't find the poll. So fabulous. So let's start breaking this down. When you think about the firms that you've worked with and the firms that you've got experience with, Bev, what do their exit plans generally look like? What's the Paint us a picture of the kind of thing that you're seeing.
That they do. I mean, the poll's really interesting, to be honest. So, what was the highest one, Dean?
3 to 10 years.
Yeah, that's what I tend to get now when I'm working with some of my clients. That is the timescale that they're looking at, anywhere between 3 to 10 years. More on the later side, like up to 10 years. But they're not ready. They're not ready yet, and that's what we're here for today, to tell you about how you should be ready and getting ready. Because even if you want to sell in 10 years' time, you should be ready now. Your practice should be saleable now, if you get what I mean. So it's the highest value that it can be right now. So don't wait and leave it till that 10 years and then put everything into place because you're just about to sell. We need you to do it now. So all the processes and your teams and your staff, your clients, everything, it's all running as efficiently as possible right now. So it gives you that time and financial freedom now while you still got the practice.
So you're seeing people who kind of get to within, I want to sell in a year. Mm-hmm. And then they go, what can I do? And the damage is kind of done. Is that right at that point?
No, there's still a lot that they can do. Even if you want to sell in 12 months, there's still a lot that they can do right now. It's going to be hard work if things aren't ready, as in the stuff that we're going to go through in a second. But it's doable.
It's doable.
Yeah,
okay.
It's doable.
We've had comment in one of the questions here. Ashley says that one of his clients never thought of selling. He was just going to wind down before he actually explained to him that the practice had value, and now he sold it. And I think that's a really common scenario that we see,
exactly.
Particularly for sole practitioners who are working on their own, where when you start your practice, you think, okay, this is kind of going to be my pension. You have it in mind, as lots of business owners do, that you're going to sell it and retire. But then I think as you start approaching retirement age and perhaps the financial demands you have are less than they once were, people tend to just take the easy route, let clients go, don't take any new clients on, and at some point think, okay, now I'll just write to all these clients and say, goodbye, I'm off.
And that's the worst thing you can do, like we said before. It's all your hard work of years, blood, sweat, tears, and etc. Why would you want to give that up and not get any financial gain from it at the end? And you're right, Dean. I think a lot of practice, not all of them, but a lot of practice owners don't actually see their business, their practice, as an asset. It's just a place that they've created, a business that they've created, a job in some cases, to be fair, that as long as it's paying their bills each month, that's fine. And if that's you and you're happy with that, that's absolutely fine. But this webinar is all about exiting and trying to get as much value at the end when you want to exit as possible.
So Robert has made a comment that he says he's 71. Hope you don't mind me sharing that, Robert. You did, in fact. And talks about the loyalty that he's had from the 40 years of experience with his clients. And that's something I think we're going to talk about later, is about that kind of more emotional side. It's a tricky one. It's one I find fascinating as well. But let's get into to this. So we're going to break this down. First of all, we're going to look at clients. So thinking about your firm, what are what's the ideal shape of your client base, and what's bad? What do you want to kind of avoid when you think about the complexion of your client base? Talk us through it, Beth.
Okay, let's go through some things then on the basis of clients. I'll give you some tips that what acquirers, people that want to buy practices, look for, and some of the pitfalls as well. So the marketing. Now, we are accounting professionals. That's what we do. But we are still salespeople because we need more clients, because ultimately we want to increase our annual recurring revenue, because more likely than not, when you exit, your valuation will be a multiple of your turnover. So this is what we need to work towards. Now we need to get our turnover as high as possible and our profitability as high as possible. So we do need to market. So just think about your practice right now when you're doing your marketing, when you're doing your networking, etc., when you're getting out there, your brand, etc. Is it you, the business owner, that's doing that? Or do you have a team? Are they involved in it? So if your team's involved in it, that's better for your business, because it's not reliant on you to get the sales in, if that makes sense. Another big one is not to have any one of your client base more than 10% of your total revenue. Now, I did pause there for a minute because I know that you needed to sink that in, because I know now your brains are going to be whizzing around thinking, my big client, is that more than 10% of my revenue? But try not to ever have more than 10% of one client because, we can't have all our eggs in one basket type thing. Client profiles as well. So this goes a little bit hand in hand with niching. There's this famous thing in it, to niche or not to niche. Some people love it, some people hate it. I personally love it, niching, because you then become the credible expert in that industry. You can get people selling on your behalf. Like, for example, when I had my practice, I niched in trades and construction. I went to trades and construction events. I got my team going to these networking events as well. Bob the Builder, we did a really good job for Bob the Builder. He knew Paul the plumber. He knew Eric the electrician. And therefore, they then spoke about our good accounting services, and they sold on our behalf, basically, just naturally. But you can't be able to do that unless you've got an exact client avatar. So do you, watching this right now, do you have an exact client avatar, or are you just marketing to everybody? So
answers in the chat, please. Yeah. Avatar, if you've got a clear idea of what your ideal client looks like, just type avatar. If you'll take all comers, write all comers, and let's just see what the general vibe is in the chat.
The thing is with the niching as well, and knowing your exact client avatar, is people sometimes believe that, it's like, for example, I've just talked about trades and construction, that if I niched in trades and construction and all my marketing efforts were geared up towards that industry, that I wouldn't get any more clients from any other industry. That's totally incorrect. So I niched in trades and construction, but I still had beautician clients. I still had fish and chip shop clients. It didn't stop other people coming to work with us for our accounting services as well. It's just for the marketing. If you've got that spot on exact ideal avatar of your clients, you know exactly where they hang out, you know exactly how to market to them because you know their pain points and their desires and what their needs are. That makes it so much better for marketing. And obviously, we're talking about increasing your revenue here so that you can get high value for your practice. I think another thing as well, Andy, is the multiple reliable acquisition factors as well. So a lot of people that I see just rely on referrals. I was going to say referral strategy.
You mean client acquisition?
Client acquisition, sorry, yes. Because we're talking about clients, so yeah, getting clients in. I think a lot of people think that they've got a referral strategy, but they actually haven't. They're just waiting for the phone to ring. Like, I've done Bob the Builder a really good job. He's definitely going to go and get me some more clients now. Well, have you got a strategy for that? Have you got any sort of, I was going to say offers, I would never say discounts, but have you got an actual strategy for Bob the Builder to go and get you clients? But you can't just rely on other people getting you clients. So you need to be able to have a multiple reliable acquisition factors for you to be able to obtain new clients. And that could be referrals, that could be part of your strategy. It could be that you're doing email campaigns, it could be that you're doing social media campaigns. It could be, there's loads of things on how to get new clients, but don't just have one way of you getting clients through the door.
So it was interesting. I went to some lectures when I was over in the States, and they were talking about niching, the niches as they refer to it as, and the riches are in the niches. But their comments were around. It's not just saying I deal with, say, dentists. Yeah. It's dealing with paediatric teeth whitening. That's really where you want to get to. Just when you're talking about people looking to acquire firms, obviously they're all different, but what's their general impression? Do they prefer that, or is it just easier to generate a higher turnover? Is there a...
It depends on who the acquirer is, to be fair. I don't think mine was that bothered. That's a bit of a harsh word, but you know what I mean? I don't think he was bothered about the type of clients I got. It was the fact that everything we're talking about today was in place on my systems and processes. I was pricing correctly. So it just got to be, it's just advantageous that I niched or whatever you just said. Yeah, I niched in that industry to pump my revenue up, to get my annual recurring revenue as high as possible before I could sell. And they were my ideal clients.
And Dane, what about you? Because I know you specialised your firm towards a certain sector, didn't you?
Yep. And I wouldn't take the approach that I did. If I were to do it all again, I would take Bev's approach and specialise my marketing and go after the ideal type of client I wanted to work with, but not make it exclusive to anyone else. So when I specialised, I literally did not take on any clients outside of that area of specialism.
Yeah.
even though I was approached. And I did find that I was turning some very good clients away because I was sticking so rigidly to the niche I went after. So I had all the benefits of holding myself out as the expert, getting known in a particular industry and bringing those types of clients in. But I think I missed a trick there by not also taking care of other clients that we would have been a really good match for, in spite of the fact they're not in the same sector.
So yeah, and niching as well, like you just said, Andy, as well. So I niched in trades and construction, as I said, but I could have micro niche. So I could have just dealt with plumbers, for example, and not bothered about house builders or electricians and stuff. But yeah, we did niche, like I said, and all our marketing efforts were towards that. But we did take other clients on, but we didn't take any clients on. They had to be the right clients for us, as in, they were happy to be in the cloud, because if they weren't, they had to go on to the next accountant because we were 100% in the cloud. They needed to understand that we were in it for the long term with them and we wanted to help them grow their business. Therefore, we aren't the cheapest. You should never, ever want to be known as the cheapest accountant or bookkeeper. It should always be about the value. So if we had any discovery calls that were outside our niche and myself or my team could tell that they weren't going to be an ideal fit for us, I would always say no. 100%, because we know there's going to be problems down the line if not.
Yeah, and you're getting a lot of support for that in the chat. Lots of people saying that they will act. They don't restrict who they act for in terms of what they do, but they certainly reject a lot of people on the basis of not being right for their firm. That
is brilliant as well, because a lot of accountants and bookies don't do that. They will just take on clients more for a vanity sake. I've just got another client, even though you might not be profitable, and you hate that client because every time the phone rings, you think, oh God, I don't want to talk to them again. But you've taken them on. So yeah, please, I'm happy that people are saying they're not taking clients on just for the sake of it.
There's a few comments that have come in that have been quite interesting. So Chris has said that his strategy is to keep numbers of clients in balance, but as he puts it, to only take on clients that appeal to us and push out the doors ones that are trouble.
Yeah.
So there's a specialism of non-trouble clients. I like that. That's a tight niche.
No one should have any trouble clients.
But this is coming up that there is a sense of, and this is a question for both of you as well, that relationship that you build up, and it is difficult, isn't it, to let go of people who you feel that you've got a relationship with and that trust you. Are you finding?
You mean when you exit?
Well, when you're thinking about how you should deal with your clients, and you're bidding them off, to actually go through that process. I mean, do you see that like it's a heartache thing?
Not if I'm bidding them off because I don't like them.
Yeah, but I mean, these are ones you do like. These are the ones. But
why would I bin people off if I like them?
Because they don't fit into your niche.
Well,
or they're not profitable. You might like them, but they're not profitable, or
I wouldn't have taken. I get what you're saying. I wouldn't have taken the client on if they weren't the right fit in the first place. And I know that's like sounding like it's all perfect and everything, but it isn't. But you've got to make sure that when you have discovery calls, you've got to have the question. I mean, this is going on. We could do a separate webinar about this, but when you're doing your discovery calls, make sure that when people are booking onto you, make sure you've got the softwares to be able to ask questions, loads of questions, before you even talk to them, so that you at that point know that they're a right fit or not, because you don't want to be wasting your time on a discovery call if you know it's not going to be a right fit. So your time is precious. That's the one thing that we all can't get more of. We've all got 168 hours a week, so we have to be as efficient as possible as we possibly can. So always make sure that even before the discovery call, like I said, you've got information to determine whether you want to even have the discovery call or not.
Well, what about you, Dean? I mean, did you have issues with the relationships with clients? How was that for you?
A few. I mean, I was very picky about who I took on, so I had very few clients that I didn't want to be working with. If there were red flags at the outset, then I simply wouldn't have taken them on. I'd never work with friends and family either. Definitely not family. Friends, maybe if I felt like we could have a working relationship, but it's just too much. Working with family is too much hassle in the long run, so I wouldn't entertain that either.
Did you give him a discount though if you did do that? Would you do family rates, mate rates, as people say?
That's why I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'd often say to people, the mate's rate is I'm going to charge you more because actually you're going to have a closer relationship to me than any other of my clients.
Yes.
I'm going to be more accessible to you just because you know you can rock up at my house. So
exactly.
if you want me tack for you, it's going to cost you more, and that's the mates rates you're getting.
And did you find that the more problem clients were the ones that were the cheaper monthly recurring revenues, the smaller fees? That's what I found when I first started my practice, that the ones that were the pain in the backside ones were the cheaper ones.
I think so. I'm now just visualising some of the problem clients I had in my time, and I took the advice. If you've got problem clients, either get rid of them or massively increase their fees so that it's worthwhile putting up with that pain. And the thing I found that no matter how much I put up the prices for some of these clients, they still wouldn't bugger off. So if you can avoid acting for them in the first place, then you'll have a much easier ride.
It's a lot easier.
But I think it goes back to us training our clients as well. It's about, from the offset, you having your processes in place, which I think we're going to go on to shortly, but it's having the process in place of what you expect from the clients, how you expect it, when to expect information from, and that they know from their side as well what to expect from you. I think, because I always say this to my clients as well, we don't sell physical products, do we? We don't sell like tables and chairs. It's nothing tangible that your clients can see. So we have to have those touch points with clients that if we're doing, I don't know, a set of catch-up work, that they might have already had a really bad experience with a previous accountant that never got in touch with them, never communicated with them, took 3 weeks to reply to emails. We don't want to be that accountant, so we need to deliver the expectations of that we are a lot better than what they've previously experienced. Therefore, we can then manipulate, it's a bit of a strong word, but mould these rubbish clients into good, ideal clients.
Let's wrap this section up. We're looking at the clients. What are the big takeaways? If someone's watching this now and they're thinking, I've got 3 to 10 years, let's say they've got a fairly broad client base, what are the 2 or 3 things that they should do right now?
Okay, right now, decide if you want a niche. If not, get your exact client avatar. Usually they're the same though, to be honest with you. Find out where they hang out and market to those ideal client avatars, because it will be as if you are talking to them directly, and be consistent with that as well, so that they keep seeing you all the time and they know that you can solve their pain point and that you can help them with their desires and needs. And finally, one of the pitfalls that acquirers look for, I know this for a fact because I speak obviously to a few of them and the one that bought my firm, one of the pitfalls of the client side of things is that they look for is clients that are significantly underpaying. So those little tiny ones that you're doing tax returns for 50 quid a year. Don't do that. Either get rid or pump the prices up. Or
do it for free and keep them off the books so no one knows. Oh, is that a strategy? I thought that might have a reaction.
Talking to 2 accountants here, you can't say things like that.
You all do it.
I would add one other point there, Andy, actually, is that you don't always have to see your exit as one kind of all-encompassing sale of your practice.
Yeah.
So if you can see that you've got a group of clients that actually aren't working for you and you think could be problematic come the full practice sale, then you can batch those up and sell them as a block of fees. I did 2 blocks of fees sales of my practice before I sold the whole thing. So it's lots of different options for an exit.
You're exactly right there. Yeah, obviously my experience is I sold my practice as a whole, and yeah, you can do blocks of fees as well. So yeah. Good point.
Well, we're going to be getting on to this. So a lot of the questions that we've got, the comments in the chat coming through, are around the next step, which is process. People are talking about, I think it was Sarah, said that if people will not, we suspect they're not going to provide us with the right information. They're the things that we're looking for. So it's less about their profile and more about their the way they run their business and the way they are. So when we talk about the processes, we're talking about the financials of the firm as well. Give us a picture of what do acquirers look for in a practice when they look internally at the process and financials.
Okay, so one of the things, and we've just said it a little bit under the client section, but is a reliable monthly recurring revenue / annual recurring revenue as well. And what I mean by that is reliable, because sometimes one of the acquirer that bought my firm said that when they did due diligence, some of the clients that were on there under the turnover bracket were clients that left like 10 years ago, but they still kept them on the books. So their own books weren't up to date. So therefore they didn't have a reliable annual recurring revenue. And like we said, sometimes if you're selling your business as a whole, it's a multiple of your turnover. So they'd have to exclude those from this when they're calculating how much they're going to pay you for it. So and this sounds so ridiculous for me to say this to a group of accountants, but please make sure that your own books and your own financials are consistently up to date. Sometimes I see that some accountants don't do that because it's not a profit-making task, is it? Because we don't charge ourselves to do our own books, so we do our clients first, but we need to always make sure that our own accounts are up to date as well. Like I said, I know that sounds silly for me saying that, but there are accountants out there that don't do their own books and keep them up to date as they should be. Some of the other things as well is the KPIs as well. Do you do KPIs? So do you do management accounts for your clients? I should imagine some of you do, which is great, but do you do that for your own internal finances as well? That's really good for you to keep your own KPIs as well for your own business. Accounting whip as well is a big thing. So when I sold my practice, accounting whip came up. And does anybody know what accounting whip is? Quick, put it in the chat. I want to know if you know what it is before I tell you what it is. Yes or no? Because this is a big thing when acquirers come to value your business as well. So if you were like me, I used to charge monthly fixed fees per client, depending on certain things like number of transactions, etc., turnover and things like that. So part of the monthly fee that I receive on a monthly basis into my bank would include such things as a year end. But when I sold, I might not have done their year end at that point in time, but I've been paid 5/12 of it, for example. So you need to also make sure that you're accounting for that WIP. So the money that you receive that you've not actually done the work for yet. Yes.
So accurate, solid financial records.
Solid financial records, yes.
We talk a lot about ARR.
Yes.
And there's ways of recognising that. But if your client base is kind of quite transitory, is there anything that you can do to make sure that turns into a solid recurring revenue?
As in, do you mean like project work type thing as opposed to
I'm just thinking about ways of locking clients in that you've seen.
I don't know how you used to work, Dean, but for me, every single one of my clients paid me monthly, even if it was self-assessment clients. Even obviously it's a smaller fee than having a virtual finance director client. I still charge my clients on a monthly basis. Better for me for my cash flow, better for me for my monthly recurring revenue, annual recurring revenue, better for my client for their cash flow as well. They know exactly what they were paying. Did you used to do that?
Yeah, I'm actually finding it really interesting in some of the comments when you talked about the WIP. Your scenario was that you had to count for clients that had paid you in advance and you'd not yet done the work. Lots of people in the chat are saying lots of work that you've done and you haven't billed yet.
But I never had that situation. So I never had debtors, ever, because of how I invoice people. So they got invoiced up front. If I took any clients on that had some catch-up work, like I've said before, I would always invoice first before I do the work. If you go to Sainsbury's, Tesco's or whatever, you're not going to go and buy loads of shopping off the shelf and say, I'm going to pay you next month. Why should we be different just because we're an accounting practice? Yeah, as I'm eating it, as I'm walking through it. Why should we be different? Why should we wait to get paid? I never had any debtors and it is totally achievable.
Chat. Hit me. Why, if you're not doing a monthly or payment in advance, why not? Are there any issues that you see with that, or is it just the way you prefer it? I'd be interested to see your thoughts.
Or is the way you've always done it and you don't want to change because you daren't change? That's a big thing that I get come across. My clients won't pay me that. Well, they will if you show them the value of why you're doing it like that.
And you never had any pushback?
Never.
No?
Never.
Yours were
yeah, I mean, I didn't have any WIP, I didn't have any debt either because my model was a subscription model. So nobody was paying me on account of work I'm doing in future. I would say to people, here's the monthly subscription and here's the work you'll get over the course of a year. If you leave at any point, there's no notice period. You can cancel immediately and leave. There's no clawback. I don't bill you for anything that I've done and not charged for, but at the same time there's no refund if you've paid me for the year and I've not, we've not done your accounts.
You've not done the accounts, you've not done the return, say. So did you find that you had many cancellations and did they all come at the same time of year? I
didn't have many cancellations, but when people naturally left, like some people, they would ask when if they wanted to leave and say, oh, I've been paying this and am I due some money back? And I have to remind them, no, it's a subscription basis. It's an all or nothing. You subscribe, you get get me for everything. If you leave, there's no making up one way or the other. So I think that was much easier for clients to understand. I think perhaps if people left, they'd then have conversations with other people who had an accountant that did bill in a more traditional way, and they would suggest to them, you'll have to ask if you're due something back. You've probably paid up front for things. But I didn't operate that way, so it did make things much simpler to explain. I think the thing that I didn't do that Bev, I'm sure, did would be if you're doing, let's say they approach you after that tax return is due, you would bill in full for a piece of work there and then before kind of setting up a monthly ongoing.
They would have already paid before the work was done, yeah. So I get a lot of this comes back to, I know we spoke about onboarding briefly before, but a lot of this comes back to the onboarding. So those first conversations with your clients are absolutely crucial and necessary for you to be able to know exactly how to charge them. Because you know what it's like if you take a client on, and especially if you charge like we did, so like by value pricing, like by turnover and transactions and things. And we used to regularly review that every 3 months for bookkeeping, every month for payroll, every year for the year-end accounts, etc. If you took a client on, right, how many bank transactions have you got last month? Oh, there's not that many, it's about 10. And then you physically get the statements and there's like 250. So you've got to be able to structure your onboarding that good that you're not going to sort of be bitten down the line. Do you know what I mean? And you've got to portray that to your clients so they know exactly how. You might be different. It might be different to come and work with my practice than what you've experienced before. But that's fine because we're loads better than your previous practice.
Just one thing I'm curious about. What happens if with a subscription model that, say, an inquiry comes up and that would just be seen as outside of that subscription? Or is that rolled into that subscription? It
would be outside, but I would sell the inquiry protection service as a subscription.
But so another thing that wasn't covered by insurance, but an additional job. How flexible were you around how big that on all you can eat subscription is quite?
So for me, anything that's ongoing, so whether that's accounts, VAT, tax, bookkeeping, payroll, or risk of an inquiry. Everything is built into that monthly subscription. Right. They can choose whether they want those things or not. The inquiry protection, I actually even broke it down further. So even though I had all practice cover, so the reality is every single client's covered for any type of inquiry, I would sell that in different ways. So you could have just tax return cover, you could add VAT to it, you could add payroll to it, you could add cover for your spouse or joint business owners. I was always covered. The insurance policy covers my practice, but I would sell it in different ways to whatever level of cover the clients want. So everything that's recurring is built into a subscription. If it was one-off, that's the only scenario that I would have billed separately. Still collected it monthly over an agreed period of time, but it would have been billed separately, not as part of that subscription. But I didn't do that much of that type of work. Most of what I did was typical compliance, ongoing stuff. I really didn't do a lot of one-off.
Right. And if me and my team as well were sort of trained to know that when we were speaking to our clients that there were any potential upsells or cross-sells, and if we did identify such things, that we would then have conversations with the clients, explain to them why we think they need these, they would agree to it, and then we would just amend the letter of engagement moving forward and amend the monthly direct debit. So it just keeps it rolling. Yeah.
Direct debits are beautiful. If anybody's not using direct debits, then get on it.
100%.
Gareth has just said go cardless is a very, very neat option. I know it's very, very popular as well. Okay, so just to wrap up, if we're talking about like that, the processes and the financials. So an acquirer comes to look at your firm. What is it that you really want them to see? Can you just encapsulate what the takeaways are for?
Yes, so just to make sure you have got that proper reliable annual recurring revenue, which is made up obviously of your monthly recurring revenue. Keep your own financials 100% up to date. Put it in your diary. It's a part of your business. So some people think that, it's because it's not a profit-making exercise to doing your own books, they won't do it, or they'll do it in an evening or a weekend. Don't. Put it in your day-to-day. Make sure that you keep that up to date each week. And make sure you looking at your WIP all the time. And just don't have that over enthusiastic view of profit, because that's what acquirers look for.
But the acquirers, so they want to come in and see that you have these figures, this information at your fingertips, and how far back. I mean, if you say you've had this profit for do they want to see that over 10 years, 5 years, 1 year? What are they like?
It totally depends on the acquirer, but usually it's the last few years, so maybe the last 3-4 years, but they'll also look for management accounts as well going forward for this year if your accounts obviously aren't due yet. They'll look at management accounts as well, which is why you need to keep your financials up to date.
Got you. One more last question on that section was whether you're running as a limited company or as a sole trader. Does that make a difference from an acquisition point of view, from a value point of view?
Well, if you're sole trader, you are the business is you. So I think it probably doesn't matter, depends on who the acquirer is, as long as you can sell the block of fees, like Dean says, or you want to sell all of it across. It depends on your branding, I suppose, in that sense. If it's all about the owner, then it's all about the owner, and you've more or less created a job rather than an asset.
Yeah, it's a
really.
client base as well. You're selling
Yeah.
I would say a company probably gives you more flexibility in how you could structure a sale. When I sold, I think in each scenario I was a company, but on the final sale it was going to be done as a assets sale, but then the acquirer didn't want to go through the rigmarole of instantly moving all the clients across to their systems, moving all the direct debits across to their system. So in the end, even though it was slightly worse for them tax-wise, they wanted to just do a share sale so that my branding stayed exactly it was, the bank account stayed the same, there didn't have to be any of that immediate transfer. So that suited us. It gave us that flexibility, which I wouldn't have had as a sole trader.
I think, do you know, on the acquirers as well, and I don't think this is in the what we're talking about, but I'll just add it in if that's all right, Andy, because
more than welcome.
You don't just go for when you come to sell your practice, don't just like go to the first person. Who I sold my practice to was the third person that I spoke to, because the first two just wasn't right. And I know on the poll you've said I'm not selling because it's my baby. That's what you do feel like when you come to exiting your business. It still is your baby. You created this business and you want it to go to the right person, and you do have sort of compassion for your clients and you want them to have a good service afterwards, like the service that you've given to them. So make sure that when time comes for you to exit, that you do work with the right company, because the one that I worked with, they use all the same systems as me. Everything was direct debit, everything was monthly, and it literally was like, it was my business one day, as if like we picked it up, and then the next day it was somebody else's, but nothing changed for my clients except for the ownership. So for them, the day-to-day stuff, nothing changed. My team moved over and everything, so systems stayed the same.
Yeah, so what you're saying is you need to be confident, and if you've got this lined up, you can be confident enough to know that the first person who comes along says, I want to buy it. If you say no, you are not shooting yourself in the foot. Yeah. So there's a lesson.
My practice, I was a QuickBooks practice. So I said I was the third person. One of the first two was a full zero practice. I knew that wasn't right to sell to them, because I knew they'd change all my clients to zero and they were more likely to leave then within a few months. So that wasn't right for me. So it's got to be right for you.
Question I was about to ask you guys as well, but Chris, thanks Chris, has just come to the rescue. So it's about your position after the exit. So Chris asks, how often do owners remain in some capacity as part of the purchase, and how long would that tend to be for? Mm-hmm. Is that desirable for the acquirer? So what happened to you, Dean? So
I left as soon as the money cleared my bank account.
Right.
So they didn't want me to stay on, and I didn't particularly want to stay on either. So that actually worked out very well for the both of us. I think that's quite unusual. I think that usually there will be at least 6 month kind of handover period.
They didn't want you to stay on. They wanted you.
What did you do?
Yeah.
I went to the golf course next day. And
no, I think why did they want you?
Well, their situation
is still being looked at by the courts.
It's still being looked at. Right.
They'd done a couple of acquisitions before, and I think they felt that the previous owners had kicked around a bit too long and got in the way of the transfer to their new way of working rather than helped see it through. So I think they'd been put off by previous experiences. So when they said they had no interest in me doing a handover period, happy days as far as I was concerned.
Is that common? I mean, from an acquirer's point of view, are they more interested typically if you say, I will stay if you want, or do they prefer you to how does that?
I think it totally depends. Every sale is different. and it all depends on the acquirer and the person that's selling. So from my particular scenario, my sale was done on the 31st of July and I left the business on the 19th of August, so 19 days. But that was my choice. I decided, just got a couple of things that I just wanted to tidy up before I left. But I could have left on the 31st of July if I wanted to, because all my systems were up to date. I got everything documented. I got a good practice management software with all my workflows there. So anybody really in accounting could have just lifted that up and picked it up and gone straight through it. And you know, everything was done. So anybody could have carried it on, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Sorry, we've got, I'm just conscious of time because we've got about 15 minutes left. We've got some questions coming in from Sarah and Chris, doing wonderfully on the questions there. So about clawbacks, which I know we discussed earlier. Let's take those anyway.
Okay.
Why not? Because they're good questions. So in terms of, so Sarah says, would you recommend selling as a block of fees rather than selling your full company with its name and branding, etc., as a way of removing the risk of tarnishing your company's historic legacy? This is an interesting point. Thanks, Sarah.
I wouldn't be sure about the legacy. You've sold your legacy, so you don't get to protect that anymore. Maybe I'm being a bit selfish. But
if you don't sell the brand, then you do get to protect it.
Yeah, well, it depends on what the reasons are for selling. So I'd sold 2 blocks of fees and I had specific reasons for doing that. I wasn't looking to get out of practice at all. The first was because I was specialising, so I wanted to offload all the clients that didn't sit within that specialism. The second time I was bringing on a franchisee and sold a block of fees to that franchisee as part of him coming on board. So actually I didn't lose any of that brand. None of those clients felt like there was any change other than they're being dealt with by another person, and I wasn't doing it to exit my practice at that point. When I eventually sold, I don't think it would have been worth breaking it down into blocks of fees when I do want to get out in one big chunk, because you're turning what is one deal into several deals. I think if you're thinking of an exit a bit further down the line and you've got a clear idea of where the value is in your practice that you can build between now and then, and it doesn't include a batch of fees, then you can do it separately. I do know people that have broken it down into different industry sectors, thinking that that would be more valuable to sell it off in small chunks, but all at the same time. I
so
don't
to someone
see the
saying, I
in
want to specialise in that area, or I'll buy that chunk of client. Do you see that a lot? Does that because that makes sense on paper, but...
Yeah, I mean, my situation is obviously, like I said, I sold my practice in full, and it's good that you're mentioning branding as well, because I did have a really strong brand, and that actually increased the value of my business. The acquirer said that, and that increased the value of my business, which was really good.
Right. Okay. So one last thing, clawbacks very quickly. That's common.
It is common. Yeah. And again, it's different for different acquirers and what you agree. Mine was a year. I'll be happy to openly say mine was a year. I think a couple of clients left within the first 4 or 5 weeks, but they were tiny clients that didn't make a big difference, to be fair. All the rest, absolutely fine. They stayed because I'd chosen the right person to buy my practice. He ran everything like I ran it because I got all the systems in place, and he knew what we were doing, type thing, and it was a good fit. So therefore, all the clients were really, really happy.
Okay.
So yeah, it didn't really affect me.
Right. Okay. Look, thanks for all the questions. We're going to plough on because we've got a poll question. Dean, switch the poll machine on.
Yes, let me turn. This one's quite a long one, and this is a multi-choice poll, this one, which is a break from the norm here on Tax Calc TV. So basically, which of the following would still happen in your practice if you weren't there? And the options that we've got, I'm just going to read them out, but we've got basic compliance work, more complex work, staff payroll. Would somebody still be doing the staff payroll if you were incapacitated at the end of the month? Are your suppliers going to be paid? Is there still going to be marketing activity that takes place if you're not the one doing it? Prospect meetings and quotes, does that happen without you? Recruitment activity, and I think internal training is the last one I've got on that list. And I've listed those because I would say in my practice, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those, 7 out of 8 of those wouldn't take place if I wasn't in the practice. I'd be fairly confident that the basic compliance would continue as is if I disappeared for a month. But the complex work still fell on my desk. I was the one that did the payroll every month. I did all the marketing activity, all the prospect meetings, all the new client sign-ups. None of the others would have happened without me in my practice.
Even payroll?
Payroll, yeah.
Staff payroll?
Yeah, staff payroll, that was me. I mean, I don't know who would have, if I wasn't there to make those bank transfers to my team, if I was incapacitated, I don't know, my wife would have had to do it out of the personal bank account, I think. I don't think anyone else had access to the account.
So it looks like basic compliance work is the leader, and then payroll and supplier payments being a close second there. So
yeah, I mean that's good. That staff pay, your team is still going to get paid if you're not there for at least 15% of people on the call.
So that needs to be higher then, doesn't it? Because we need your team to be able to do more than the business owner.
Yes. This was the thread that runs through. So let's take a look then. If we can, we've got about 4 or 5 minutes to look at the staff side of things.
Yes.
So I think this is going to be touching on where you fit in.
Yep.
But yeah, talk to us about what kind of staff structure that an acquirer likes to see or doesn't like to see.
They like to see a hungry and a dynamic team. So not the ones where it's like a blame culture. I'm not doing that because it's not in my contract to do that, stuff like that. So make sure you've got the right team and they are, like I said, they're hungry and dynamic. They want to do more. They don't just see it just as a job. They want to be promoted. They want to give you ideas. They want to go to accounting events and look at the new software vendors that we can make more efficiencies in the practice. So we need really good team members like that. That's what acquirers look for. We can't have any bottlenecks, and more often than not, Andy, the bottlenecks is the business owner, which what Dean's just said. So we need to try and get rid of the bottlenecks. So that usually is the owner, and it also could be systems and processes. So think about your systems and processes right now. Do you have a good practice management software with all your services in it? And I'm not just talking about your accounting stuff, your compliance stuff. I'm talking about everything that you do in your practice. Do you have everything documented? Do you have workflows for everything that your team can do and that they can pick up so you don't have to do it? We've spoken earlier about the client side of things, marketing without the face of the owner. But the delivery of the accounts and stuff without the owner. So we've just said in the poll there that the compliance, a lot of people are saying that the compliance can still happen without the face of the owner. But what about the discovery calls? What about going to see clients and stuff like that? What about networking? Is that all down to the owner? Try and get your team involved as well, so you are away from that side of things, so that the business can run without you. If the business can't run without you, I know it sounds a bit harsh, but you've just created a job, not an asset. And that's what this webinar is about, realising that you've got a valuable asset and we're trying to increase that valuable asset for when the time comes that you want to sell. And the biggest thing for me, automate.
Automate.
As much as possible.
Only 3 automates.
Well, I can keep going if you want.
I think 4 or 5.
Keep saying it for the next 5 minutes if you want. Automate the hell out of your practice.
I think it is an issue, and this is what I speak to people all the time. I think there has been some comments in the chat about that notion of it's all very well, we can say to people, look, let go, but it's very difficult, I think, as a human being who's built that firm up to be able to step away. I don't know if there's anything we can do to help someone who finds it naturally difficult to say, I'm going to close the door. I'm just going to let them get on with it, because that can be quite difficult, even though the chances are nothing would go wrong.
Well, I wouldn't do that to start with. You've obviously got to hold the hand and help them.
Yes.
And that's where the systems come into play. So that, usually when I did training, I would sit with somebody, I would show them how to do it. So they would watch me, and then they would do it while I was watching them, and then they would do it while I watch them, if that makes sense. And then the more somebody does something, the better they're going to be at it. But also because I got the systems in place, so we'd got a lot of internal how-tos. We did a lot of Loom videos, so we recorded our screen on how to do this, how to do payroll, how to do this. So we'd always got like that sort of manual, that internal log for anybody to go back and re-look at that if they did forget how to do something or whatever. But no, I totally get you. It's your baby at the end of the day. It's your business that you've created. Yeah. But if you want to profitably exit your business at some point, you have to do these things. So try and think about, not right now, when you're thinking of your future, you're thinking of that pension pot, like you've said. So the more of these processes and systems that you do, and the more somebody else is doing it for you, the higher the value your practice is going to be in the long run.
So it's about having the confidence to give, not just to give them the work, but to empower them.
You've got to empower them,
that.
yeah.
And that can be difficult. It's doable.
If you've got the right
rewarding.
team members as well,
So,
which is what we said, a hungry and dynamic
yes.
team as well.
Right, I see. So Dean, what about yourself? I mean, you had quite a few members of staff, and what was your relationship like with them? And
I don't think I've got any success stories to share on the staff front. My team were very good. There was 5 of us when I sold, and one of the motivations for going was that the team that I had in place then were very good, that everything was running super smoothly, needed very little of my involvement in the day-to-day, but I knew if any one of them left, I would be brought straight back into the fold and then have to try and find a replacement that was as good as they were. Because I'd had quite a few people in the past that weren't anywhere near as good as the team I had when I left. So, that was one of the motivations for going. But yeah, I'm not a great manager. I think I was a very good trainer. So for the trainees that came on, I could bring them through and teach them everything they need to know about delivering compliance work. But I wasn't a good manager in terms of helping them progress their career and find out what things do they love doing in the practice, where do they want to go, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. So I think it's perhaps more difficult in accounting. I mean, I've always been a believer in giving people the ability to fail, and it's quite difficult when you're dealing with someone's tax and accounts, isn't it? You just it doesn't matter if you make a few errors there. Yeah. We'll learn for the next time. Okay, so we've got a couple of minutes left. There's lots of questions, and I think one of the ones that I do want to address is around kind of multiples. I don't know if you've got any kind of advice or expectations on what the market is doing, but let's wrap up with, in terms of staff, what are the core takeaways?
So try and have that hungry, dynamic team, not a blame culture in your team, that they are motivated truly to be able to do their work and to bring lots of energy into it, and to help you to move your practice forward as well. The lack of systems as well, and I know that's part of staff as well, isn't it, and the internal factors, but the systems, don't have a lack of them, have lots of them. That all talk to each other, they all synchronise. Maybe not lots actually, but the ones that talk to each other, which brings on the efficiencies in your practice. And just going back again to not having too much reliance on the business owner.
So make sure, and I think that's come across throughout the whole thing, is this: if your firm doesn't need you in it, it's going to be more valuable to someone who wants to buy it. Mm-hmm. So, we're coming up to the top, and we've got one more poll question, Dean, if you can kick the poll machine.
Yes, I can.
One more time.
This has gone so quick, can't we do another hour?
Next time, we're going to do like a telethon.
Telethon,
24-hour with Bev.
That's fine.
Okay, final poll of the day. How ready do you think your practice is for sale, given everything that you've heard so far today? So we've got the options: not ready at all, I wouldn't even buy it myself. Lots of work to become ready, achievable in the short term, or primed and ready for sale. And I think there are some people that are primed and ready for sale, because there seems to be a lot of deals going on in the chat today.
Right,
so it's very exciting stuff there.
So it looks like the clear winner is achievable in the short term, which is great.
That's
news.
good news, yeah.
So we've got some people that have hopefully been empowered by today's session. Is there anything you can share about? I know it can be very difficult. It's going to be acquirer only. I'm not going to ask you that question. No one's asked it in the chat.
He's asking me how much I got from my business. I've told him I can't say that out on TV.
I just want to know, I mean, people have been talking about 1.1, 0.9. Is that fairly...
Yeah, it can go from sort of 0.8 or something like that up to 1.5, I should imagine. I got quite a high one because of everything we've said today. I'd got everything right before I sold, because I really did work very, very hard to get everything that we've said today in place. And it's difficult. It does take a lot of hard work from the owner to get all this in place. but it's worth it in the long run. I can't give you an exact multiple because it totally depends on your practice, totally depends on your acquirer, but the more you do in your practice, what we spoke about today, the higher your multiple will be.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very, very much. We've come to the end of today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Dean, for sharing your experience. So thank you for watching. We couldn't do this without you. Really appreciate you coming along. We're going to be back next week. We've got the Power Hour, where we provide invaluable advice on actually using TaxCalc and all the functionality that you have, but you may have missed if you are a TaxCalc customer. Very useful. And even if you're not a customer, you might want to come along and find out what all the fuss is about. Next webinar, 10th of April, we're going to be back with Calathea. Lucy and Mike are coming in. We're going to be talking about AML. We're going to be talking about how the inspectors are viewing your practice. We had a huge interest in that last year and a lot of demand that they come back and answer a lot more questions. And we're going to be finding out about the farmer who unwittingly found himself with a barn full of cannabis, which was a brilliant story, and we want to find out what happened next. We've got some big news coming up, hopefully, where we inviting HMRC and Rebecca Bennyworth and Dean for a little chat about MTD, which will be very, very interesting. Keep an eye out for that, hopefully in June. And finally, we have we've got the offer. So, do you want to quickly run through the offer one more time? So
if you've liked everything we spoke about today, I can help you to get on this journey to make your business more of a higher value, shall we say. Even if you're not going to be selling anytime soon, but if you go to that link, what's on the screen right now, I've got a one-day full person in-person event in Sheffield on the 9th of May. It's not a lot of money because it's not about me making money. It's about me giving all my advice and expertise to you guys. And it's going to be a lot of how to increase your revenue, about mindset and all stuff like that. So if you look at that link, I'd love to see you there on the 9th of May.
Well worth doing. And finally, we did have a number of inquiries about people don't want to see us, they just want to listen to us. So we had a number of people who were interested in audio-only version, aka the podcast, and we have obliged. The podcast channel is being populated as we speak by some of the most recent and going back in time to some of the older webinars that we've done, and certainly that we did last year. So keep an eye out for that. Search for TaxCalc in the wherever it is that you find your podcasts. Search for TaxCalc and you'll start to see more and more of those coming up, so you can listen to them in the car or while you are running. Wonderful. So with that, thank you very much for coming. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.